Hi everyone, it's so wonderful to be here, and thank you to Shoshana for inviting me. There are a very few number of familiar faces, and so nice to see those of you who I know already, and so wonderful to see so many new faces. So thank you for coming, and I hope that we're going to be inspired this morning. We're coming up this week to Rosh Chodesh Shvat. And this is really a turning point in the season and in a new month. And each Jewish month has an energy and a lesson that we can learn from it. So my background is in logotherapy, and for those of you who know Dr. Viktor Frankl, he's written a book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he's a survivor of the concentration camps, and his whole arm of psychology is around how to find meaning in struggles and difficulties. And so this is a core factor of what I work with, and I'm a trauma therapist. And I really love to empower people through difficult times in their lives, difficulties, struggles, and challenges. So I also like to tell stories because I think people remember concepts through stories. So here's a beautiful story. Hello. Here's a beautiful story that I want to open up with. The month that we're coming into is the month of Shvat. And once December ends, it's kind of moving into, winter's like settled down and moving forward a little bit. We've passed already the winter solstice, which is the time of the longest night and the shortest day. And winter and darkness and cold are really concepts for something deeper of challenge, difficulties. Sometimes people will say that was a very dark time in my life, or a dark period in our Jewish history. It could be on a personal level, and also it could be on an emotional level or a national level as well. So maybe that's a nice reminder. If we could just put phones on vibrate or silent, then we can move past that. Okay, so winter time is also often looked at a time where there's long nights, the day is short, it's cold, we might feel a little bit more, closed into ourselves, and it's a time of sometimes difficulty and challenge with long nights, darkness, and we've reached a point, especially because the winter solstice has already occurred, that we're like now on the other side. We're now on the other side of difficulty, challenge. We're moving now towards the spring, which is a time of rebirth and renewal. So it's no coincidence that the festival in the month of Shvat that we're coming up to is Tu B'Shvat, which is the holiday for the trees, the new year for the trees. Just like we have the new year for us, for human beings on Rosh Hashanah, this is the new year for the trees. So there's a story that I'll start off with, and this happened even before the state of Israel came into being. And this story was written by Amos Bar. It's a true story in Eretz Agadah. And it's in the early days when Tel Aviv was just becoming a city. And it's awesome when I get such a thrill when I drive on the highway and I see them widening roads and the cranes everywhere up, and the country is in constant state of building, and it just gives me such a thrill. Even since I've made Aliyah 11 years ago, there are new highways and new roads and new easy ways to get, and new tunnels into Jerusalem. It's just so exciting. It's showing like the growth and the development, and it's really, really exciting. So at this time, when Tel Aviv was still a dirt road, and the mayor at the time was Mayor Dizengoff, and his name was also Mayor Dizengoff. And he got news that the British colonial secretary, Sir Winston Churchill, was going to come and visit Tel Aviv. So this was great and exciting news, and all the residents were like preparing, Winston Churchill is coming to visit, and they looked around and they thought, well, this is a bit of a dump, not much to see. And they decided that they would greet him on Rothschild Street. So they went to the outskirts of the city, and where they found big trees, and they uprooted some trees, a whole lot of trees, and they brought them in and they planted them in the dirt road on Rothschild Street. And then everyone was excited. The following day, the townspeople came out to meet Sir Winston Churchill, and they were leaning against the trees and very proud of their shade. And all of a sudden, like, the trees started wobbling, and after not much time, the trees all fell over. All the trees fell down. And Winston Churchill turned to Mayor Dizengoff and he said, without roots, nothing will last very long. And it's a very deep concept that we need roots. We have to know where we come from to have a purpose and a hope to where we're going. This is also a logotherapy idea of, if you can have hope for the future, then you can maybe overcome the difficulty and the challenge you might be going through right now. So it's pertinent, the story, because we're going to be speaking about trees. And my title is nurturing ourselves and realizing our potential, and asking ourselves the question, like, what kind of tree are we? And we're going to look at how we break down a tree, how we look at a tree, and what we can learn. Because always when I teach classes, I love to teach about finding meaning. Like, this is nice, it's been a holiday that's been around for years and years, same like Pesach, same like every holiday. Why do we still need it? So Rabbi Tatz says that time doesn't move like this, that we just move forward in time. Time actually moves around, and that when I get to Tu B'Shvat this year, I know I've done it before last year, but last year had its energy. This year it has the same energy of renewal and replenishing and the spring energy and finding our potential, just like trees do, and overcoming the challenge of winter and getting blossoms. So that energy, which was around last year, we meet again this year. Like, we might think, why do I need Pesach? I've cleaned my house 50 times before, but it is hopefully who I was last year when I experienced this Chag. I'm not anymore. That between last year and this year, I'm someone new. Things have changed within me. So now I'm actually coming to a brand new Chag. So it is, yes, I have a familiarity of what Tu B'Shvat was or what Pesach is, but now I'm different. 1 year ago, I was that. Hopefully in that time, I've grown, I've developed, I've changed, I've evolved a bit, I've found meaning in my challenges, and we all have challenges on different levels. Everyone has challenges. No one lives in Disneyland. So it's how we evolve through these things, not about why me and why am I going through this, but the response is really what now? This is in my life and how I respond. And we can learn this lesson also from Joseph. He was, his terrible story, his brothers betrayed him, they tried to kill him. He went into he was abused by his master's wife, and then he was in jail. Poor guy, like, he really had a hard time. And he didn't hold resentment towards his family members, because his outlook was, I didn't choose this, but I've been chosen. So for some reason, I'm in the situation. There's a reason or a belief in me, like we say Moda Ani every morning, Rabba Emunatecha, that God has faith in me. He's given me today to do something with it. And this is what we learn from Joseph, that even although he found himself in that place, he didn't respond with, why me? Why do I have to be in jail now? Why do I have to be thrown in the pit? There was none of that. It was like, what now? What can I do now? What can I do about this? So the elements of this month of Shvat are bringing an energy. And if this energy is here, then we can tap into this energy and see what are the lessons, the opportunities that we can take out of this exciting and beautiful month that we are about to enter. So we see that the nights are starting to get a little bit shorter, and sunrise is getting a little bit earlier, a little bit earlier, and our days are getting a little bit longer. And we know in the daytime, it's a time where there's clarity, where we can see well, where we feel a little bit better. But sometimes at night, when things are dark or difficult and we can't see so clearly, that represents our challenges. So already what the season And that's what's so beautiful about living in Israel. I grew up in South Africa where Hanukkah was always the middle of summer. Talk about dark times. No, it's very light here. It's my summer holiday. So in Israel, it's so beautiful about being making aliyah and living in the correct season, in the correct time. Like everything is in its absolute correct place. So this time of Shvat, where we see that the tree is replenishing, right? Actually, and I don't know so much about Netanya, but in Renana, all the trees are still green. In South Africa, when I grew up, the trees in winter lost their leaves. They look cold and miserable and sad and lonely and dead. But here, I don't know if Netanya is the same, but in Renana, the trees are all green and lovely, and only occasionally you see, a sad, cold tree. In Jerusalem, I was there last week. Jerusalem, there are bare trees like I grew up with and like I know from South Africa. So you get the feel of winter. And sometimes you look at these trees and you think, whoa, it's at the end of the line. But what we don't really realize, which is the magic of this month, is that all the beauty is happening inside the tree. And it's something that can't be seen on the tree because the tree looks like it's finished, no hope for the tree. But the beauty and the magic is all taking place inside the tree. So if that's the energy, what's happening in nature now, it's applicable to us as well. Can happen on our level as well. We might feel my challenge, my difficulty is so huge, and it can be on any level. It can be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, can be on a health level, it can be on a relationship level, can be anywhere where we just feel too much. There's no hope for this. There's even a death happening around this situation. But what comes to teach us now about the energy of this month is there's change and nurture taking place deep inside to overcome the long winter, to arrive at the spring. And if we see actually from nature such a beautiful lesson in learning that no one is stuck in winter forever, except in that movie Frozen, that little snowflake. He was stuck in winter forever. But none of us are ever in winter forever, right? After winter comes the spring and then the summer. Okay, so none of us are ever stuck in that. And if we need something of less than an annual cycle, we have a monthly cycle where the moon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and enlarges to its magnificent, and then gets smaller and smaller and almost seems to disappear, but comes back the next day. So we have a monthly cycle as well to look at of renewal and overcoming difficulties and challenges. And then we also have a daily cycle to look at because we have the night. When things are difficult, we don't see so well which path should I take, what should I do right now. And then we have the dawn that comes. So every day, nature is showing us, either on a daily, a monthly, or a yearly basis, that there is hope, that the difficult time will end, and then there'll be light, or there'll be summer, or spring, or whatever it is, or the moon will renew itself. So the energy of this month is around nurturing ourselves and also realizing our potential. Okay, we might have gone through a hard time, or we might be present in a very hard time right now, but that there's an opportunity of the energy which is around us to tap into to make changes to the difficulties. So realizing our potential or igniting the potential, this energy is the month that we're coming into. So the zodiac sign of this month that we're coming into, does anyone know? Aquarius. Yeah, and that's the water carrier. So why I also really love speaking to women is because we are water carriers. We are schlepping water for everyone. Our communities, our families, our parents, our children, our friends. We are always taking and giving and giving and giving. And women don't often take the time to fill up their pail that they're carrying. So at the end of the day, this water carrier is actually saying, the Aquarius, there's no coincidence that that's the mazal. In Hebrew, it's called the mazal. The mazal of the month is the water carrier. And it is about this idea that you can't pour from an empty pot. And many times when I see women, they come to me at the place where they're totally depleted. They just can't anymore. And they can't move forward. And they're just so fermatted. I don't know what the translation of that is. Even more. Yeah. They're just at that place where they feel like less than the doormat even. And this month is coming to offer the ability to replenish, because we can't pour from an empty pot. We would never say to our car, you know what, I see you're flashing and you need some fuel right now, but I still need 3 days of driving. So in 3 days, I will fill you up. What would happen if we did that? Like, the car would just shut down and stop. But we're laughing because this is what we do to ourselves. We push ourselves just a bit more, just a bit more. And then we feel like, I can't go to an art class. I feel too guilty if I went and did something like that. So we don't give ourselves permission. I can't go for a gym class or a run right now. I can't go and meditate or whatever that thing is that replenishes you.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
So what actually is, we feel then guilt around it. I can't do that. But think of a time when you actually have done these things and how you feel after that. And then you come home and you meet your loved ones and then they ask you something. And if you feel replenished, then it's yes, with pleasure. But if it isn't, then it's not now, right? Because we feel so empty. So this is the month of filling up. And we actually, when we look at the trees, we don't see this process happening. But the water and the rainwater that has come down has seeped into the earth. And what's happening behind the scenes is the sap is starting to rise in the trees and starting to nurture from the inside out, like this liquid gold coming up to replenish and give nutrients and new life back into the tree. So if this is happening, it's telling us that it can't come from the outside. It first has to come from the inside. So a permission that we all, and I'm giving permission today, we all can give ourselves to nurture ourselves, because when we feel good, everyone else around us is going to feel good. You know, if mom's not happy, no one else is going to be happy. It's true. So let's leave the guilt behind about, I can't do that. I can't take a walk on the beach, down the road. I never get there, right? Maybe that's true for some of you, because I've got a million other things to do. I need to be here. I need to be there. This one needs me. That one needs me. But we can do all of those other things where people need us if we ourselves feel replenished. Then we give out from a full space and not from a resentful space. So that's part of what this water carrier is coming to teach us as well. That yes, we can be givers in all these areas of our lives, but we have to also give to ourselves. It's not a joke that when we don't even listen to the announcement anymore on the airplane of put your mask on first. Because if you're dead, you can't put someone else's mask on them, which is why we have to be able to take care of ourselves first. All of these things are teaching us that. And I apologize, I didn't get around to printing a source sheet, but I will read out the sources. So in the Torah, in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 19, it says, when you besiege a city for many days to wage war against it, to capture it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. For you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Because man is a tree of the tree of the field is a man, right? So man is compared in the Torah to being a tree. So what can we learn from this? And also keeping in the back of your mind, what kind of tree are you? What kind of tree are you, and what kind of tree do you want to be? So we are compared to being like the tree in the field, because we grow up just like trees do. We grow up out of our roots and we flourish, we get branches, we get fruit, we get leaves, and we are giving off certain things then to the environment. So it's no coincidence that the first mitzvah that is given is pru uravu, which is go forth and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply. It's another connection of man to trees. So it's no coincidence that it says this, because trees produce food, they produce shade, they give wood for furniture, for paper. We rely on trees in so many different ways. And the connection here of man is like a tree in the field is, well, what do I produce? What do I give forth? How do I contribute to the society around us, around me? What is my role there? So we were put on this earth to do good and benefit the world, just like trees were. So that now also brings up this idea of, well, then what is my potential? What is my purpose in being here? What is the function of this challenge or difficulty that might be in my life right now? What can I learn? How can I overcome it? How can I grow through it? Who am I because of it? These are questions we can also start asking. So there's this lovely idea by Rabbi Michael Garari, and he says when he was a child, he was always so amazed that out of a seed, you can get a tree, right? Like the acorn, if it just knew that it had treeness inside of it, like that teeny little thing. And I actually happen to love to work in the garden. I find it so rewarding and replenishing. It teaches patience, especially if you've got small children or grandchildren, that this is, everything today is press your button, there it is. Order on Amazon, it's on, the doorstep. Everything just arrives like this. Now use your air fryer, the chips are ready. And everything arrives, and the next generations expect things to come like this. So when things aren't working out, they lose interest. They haven't got the skills necessarily to cope with patience and put in some effort and cultivate something. And then, the more effort you put in, you will get rewards out of it. So Rabbi Tatz actually says the best way in this generation to teach these lessons to children or grandchildren is to have them plant a vegetable garden, because you can't make it come out quickly. You can't make carrots grow in 2 days. You have to put in, show up for it and be interested in it, give it the right care, and then you will reap rewards will come from it. So I happen to love gardening, and I planted a little black pip, or a seed, you call it, from a papino, big papaya like this, which I brought from South Africa because you don't get them here in this country, and I miss it. I absolutely love it. So I planted it, and it happens to grow very quickly. This tree grows very quickly, and within 1 year it's already giving fruit. So 1 year. And the fruit is this size, like bigger than my smile. And it is such a rewarding effort when you see I've put this in the ground and I've nurtured it, and look what is coming. But there's another element that is there, like as much effort as we can also put in, we can't bring the rain or the sunshine. There's a godly element in everything in our life, and if we can tap into that as well, then we can be connected to partnering with making changes happen. Sometimes we feel so alone in our challenges and difficulties, but if we can also partner and see this has come into our life for a reason, I'm not alone, and how can I be helped through the process as well, then that helps too. So Michael Garari, actually a few years ago, on my first attempt at planting this tree, it grows very quickly. It's like, wow, it's like Jack and the Beanstalk, and it gets like there, it's this high, then it's this high, then it's this high, and then the fruit is growing. And I was so excited because there was all these green fruit on the tree. They hadn't started ripening yet. This is a few years ago. And one night there was a terrible storm, huge storm. And when I came outside in the morning, the tree was lying on the floor, and it couldn't be planted again. It was uprooted. And I felt like it was like a heartbreaking loss for me, because all this effort and energy had gone into this excitement of potential for the future, which just ended. And for me, it wasn't just about the tree fell over. It was something more existential and deeper. But like, I really felt that I examined, like, what am I planting in this world? What am I reaping in this world? What's falling over? What needs more attention? So nature can really provide us like a deeper way into, where we are in our lives at the moment and at this time. And so currently on my second attempt, the tree is now it's about 6 or 7 meters high. It is filled with fruit, big ones like this, which we already been eating, and now it is tied to the balcony. It won't get knocked over again. So through our difficulties and our challenges, we also learn new things. I didn't know I had that in me. My daughter has a sign in her bedroom which says, I didn't know how strong I was until being strong was my only option. Right? Yeah, write it down. It's a good mantra. So the truth of the matter is, no one wakes up on a day like today and says, oh, it's Thursday, how can I be great today? Like, we don't generally just think like that. So it is really, we are pushed to think like that when we are going through struggles and difficulties, when this is really hard, and now how can I show up today? I need to find something. And if we dig deep, like we say also, I didn't know I was so strong. people say like, you're amazing, you're incredible. I didn't know I could be. So it's actually the struggle which brings out a part of you that you might not have known even existed. It's coming to teach us something about ourselves as well. Right, so this is what happens. The seed gets planted in the earth. Okay, that's the first step. And then it has to decompose, almost disintegrate, rot into nothing before the tree can come. Like if you look under a big oak tree, you're not going to find an acorn at the bottom. It's gone. There is no longer an acorn, right? It's now a tree. So it also has to be prepared to give up what is safe and what is known right now to be able to become the tree. If it wants to stay an acorn its whole life, that's all it's going to ever be, right? So it's got to go through this disappearing, disintegrating process. And then you need to give it plenty of water. We need to also give it sunlight, and then divine intervention comes and blesses and brings the tree into fruition, right? And even the best of farming efforts can't promise. If the rain doesn't come, nothing's going to grow if there isn't enough water. There's this magnificent story, just popped into my head, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. I love logotherapy stories. I absolutely love them. And I read the book of, it's a book as well. So I know there's a movie on Netflix, but I didn't see that. But the book is exquisite. I always, when I'm watching movies and I say to my kids, you see how he's overcoming the challenge? And they say, Mom, can't you just watch the movie? You know, but I can't. I'm always looking for the meaning behind. So in these outlands in rural Africa, where there was a drought 1 year, 2 years, and the people are starving. There's nothing to eat. And this young boy goes then, his father can't afford to send him to school because there is no food, so he's got no fees for school. So he hangs out in the junkyard, and he's very curious, and he gets a book from the library on windmills. And he decides he's building a windmill, and he gets water. Okay, and now today then someone through TEDx finds him, and a happy ending, which came about through drought, difficulty, hardship. And it's a very, very hard story. There's a lot of loss in this. So let's look at these few stages and see what we can learn and what the lessons are for us. So the first stage of the seed must be placed into the earth, right? It's a type of like humility, right? Of putting ourselves into this place and hoping, something good will come out of this. We also need to be ambitious, but we have to combine these two things together. Humility and ambition together. Can't just wait, oh, I'm so humble, I never get anything done, but I'm so arrogant that everything is me. To find the balance as we put ourselves into the earth and begin to grow. The next stage is letting go. This disintegration, right? Of this is who I am, and this is how things should be, and my way is right. We sometimes have to let go of that. And just a personal story, what happened recently, I go to this lovely small little shul in Ranana. It's called Labor Deck Minyan because we sing. Everything is about singing. It's Carlebach on steroids. And I absolutely love it. I love it. But it's a dingy little tiny room, and no one can move. And because no one can move, there's so many of us packed in there, and it's like the roof is coming off. Anyway, now they've raised money and they're building another shul. And they send out the plans to all the members, and I see the women are sitting upstairs. I'm like, what? That is so 1980s. I don't want to sit upstairs way back. I want part of it. I love being part of it. Right now I'm behind the mechitza, but I'm part of what's going on. So I'm going to tell the rabbi, I'm going to put a woman upstairs. And he says to me, I can hear your point of view and how important it is for you to be a part of everything. And we didn't really have the space to go this way. So we're going this way. And you'll be sitting closer to Hashem. So he said, just sit with that for a little bit. So I had come in with my agenda of what's right, how things need to be done. And he's got this amazing way of of saying, just try and see things from another perspective. We always go in like, it's my way. Like, don't tell me to change. You change, and then everything's going to be okay. This is our outlook, but this isn't what works in life. We need to change. And the real thing is, we can't change anyone else. But when we make changes ourselves, the people around us are different because they are responding to someone different. So this is what this process is about, going into the ground. Are we prepared? And actually now, I love the idea. Yeah, I am higher than you. I am now closer to Hashem. And really, I'm going with that attitude. But sometimes a new perspective can really, another way of seeing things can offer us a different way to look at things. And actually, in the point before that, with this humility, I had a joke to share, and I forgot to tell you, of this guy, and you've probably heard the joke, that he's driving around and late for his appointment, and he's in New York City where there is no parking, and he's driving and driving and driving and circling, and he just says, okay, God, please, just find me a parking. I'm desperate. I'm running late. I'll do anything. Whatever you want, I will do. Just get me the parking. All of a sudden, he sees a car going out, and he says, never mind, I found one myself. Okay, so that's not the humility. We go into the ground, we partner, we recognize and we see and we find and we look for the blessings in our lives as well. So once we've gone into the ground, then comes the stage of watering, nurturing. And like we said in the beginning of putting fuel in the car and petrol in the car's not going to go without it. So it's about also not only, and we're so good at it as women, to nurture outwards and to give to everyone around us. The last person we give to is ourselves. So it is an opportunity in this watering process to realize that I too need to be watered. Everyone around me needs watering, and they're all getting watered, but I too need watering as well. And also we know that the Torah is compared to water, right? You can't go 3 days without water. You can't go 3 days without the Torah, which is why we read the Torah on Mondays, Thursdays, and Shabbat. It's so that you don't go 3 days without Torah, without our water, our life-giving lessons. And then there is the part about the sunlight, right? Sunlight comes, that the fields of sunflowers, they move like this in the day. They follow the sun, right? That we go to the places that nurture us. We go to the relationships that nurture us. People come to us if we nurture them. If we're snapping all the time because we're so low on depletion, then we can't give out. And then people aren't going to come to us because we're not that source of light for them either. So it's very important that we can be a source of light, of hope and other people's sun, but that we also turn it inwards and give it to ourselves away. So now there is this idea then with the sunlight of positivity. So for many, 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 many years, I lived my life as just be positive, put a smile on my face, and everything will just be okay. And I got by very nicely with that attitude. But having evolved and learned and constantly learning, I'm also a trauma therapist. Before COVID, I started studying trauma therapy, that there is a definite role for positivity. But before the positivity, we have to acknowledge the pain, right? We have to be able to say to ourselves, because just putting a smile on my face and pulling myself through something is really putting a Band-Aid on the Grand Canyon. Like, that's not going to close it.
I think it's called toxic positivity. Right?
Toxic positivity. Yeah. Thank you. Toxic positivity. So we want to find more of a different kind of positivity where we can first, and this is how trauma therapy works. We don't just say, let me fix it. Let me make it right. We first say, wow, dear one, you've suffered so much. Let me hear about your pain. And when we can feel the pain, we can acknowledge how huge this is, then it can discharge out of the body. It doesn't leave otherwise. What actually happens when we put the smile on our face before acknowledging the pain and giving space for the pain, and of course you're here, this has been painful. When we acknowledge it, we allow it to heal. Because we have a part of us who parts of us sometimes feel exiled. that situation was so difficult for me. It wasn't dealt with. It was just, this band-aid came on top of it, these big smiles, and put a smile on my face and get through it. But really, when we ignore the pain, not only is the pain went through something difficult and maybe alienating or feeling alone or rejected or whatever it went through, but we ourselves are rejecting it as well by not showing up for it with some sunshine. So before we can just be positive and put the smile on our face, we need to be real. We need to be real. And actually, there's this Buddhist psychologist Thich Nhat Hanh. He brings in all these magnificent ideas, and he says when that fear arises in you, or anything, that pain or whatever it is that arises in you, you can just put your hand over it and really acknowledge it and say, dear one, I'm here for you. Imagine speaking to ourselves in that way, such a nurturing way, and speaking to our loved ones in that way. Not, oh, it's nothing, everything's going to be okay, but I can hear you really struggling with this. Tell me about your pain. Then that way the pain can feel heard and it can start to dissipate. So that's what we learn from that. And the last point there is this divine intervention. Okay, that even with the best soil and the freshest of seeds and the right amount of wind and sun and everything and rain, we still need God's touch in it. So to know that we're not meant to do things on our own. God wants a relationship with us, and we have these beautiful ideas laid out for us. Each week brings, new ideas and thoughts to inspire us and encourage us to be in our lives and be present in the difficulties and the challenges to overcome them, to know who we are on the inside. And there's the story of this nurse in New York at the beginning of COVID. And sorry, she wasn't a nurse; she was the head of the surgery. And she was, there was death after death and desperation of not knowing what to do. This new disease, no one knew what to do with it. If you think back to those times when people were dying alone, and it was just too terrible. And she was interviewed after a little while, and the interviewer said to her, how are you coping with all, how traumatized are you from what's going on? How are you getting through this difficult time? And she said to him, I have been preparing my whole life through every challenge to come to this point today. And so have all of us. We have all been through. It starts as a baby when you start teething. That's the first time like pain is really felt. And you think, oh, Nebach, the poor child, what does it need this for? But it's practice for later in life, because life does bring pain for everyone. And we are not meant to avoid the pain. We're meant to overcome it. We're not meant to say, bring it on. No one wants that. But when it is here, we have some tools, we have some skills, and can we tap into that to help me with what I'm going through now? So if we think about the potential as well, this moment now when the trees are receiving this gift, the sap that's rising in the trees. We can't see it from the outside. It's almost like the moment of inspiration. Like you have this inspiration, no one can see it on you. It happens deep inside. And then afterwards you have to go bring the fruit into the world. Take your inspiration and do something with it. But it first happens deep inside. That's what's happening now in the trees and in nature, and that's what's available for us. So here's another beautiful quote from Michelangelo, who says, the greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that our aim is too low and we reach it. Right? We don't know what we're capable of, and we don't believe what we're capable of. And it really is the challenges that show us, hey, you didn't think you could do this, but guess what? You actually can. And then even if we don't think we can, it's the people around us who say, where did you get the strength from? You're such an inspiration. I've learned so much from you. So sometimes we don't believe it, but then we have to wait for others to tell us, right? So this just reinforces now about potential. Sometimes we aim so low, and then we wonder why our lives are so mediocre, that we haven't managed to turn it into anything big, okay? So people often think, well, in my 20s, that's when I had potential, right? That's when I could have become something. It's too late for me now, really. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not true. Not true. Of course we can. At any stage in our lives, we can bear fruit. And I remember when I was 26, my father passed away. And at that time, I was an interior designer, loving my life, very creative. And when my father got ill, I was obsessed with reading about the role of the patient. I wanted to know, you work at hospice, I wanted to know what's the role of the patient in their own healing journey, or is that just the doctor owns everything and doctors are in charge? So I read books after books about the healing journey of the patient, what we can do to be active participants in our own lives. And I saw my father go through, he was given 3 months and he had 14 months, which was a real blessing for us, a very, very huge challenge and a real loss in my life at a very young age. And I saw that many years later, when the seed was planted in his illness within me of healing. And then a few years later, I changed careers. My life was going this direction. I knew exactly where I was going. I had a beautiful career. And then challenge came into my life. My father passed away, and a new door got opened. So sometimes in the challenges, even like from the depths of the jail, Joseph could look out and see potential. Remember me when you speak to Pharaoh, right? That sometimes a new door can open through challenge and difficulties. And it's actually thanks to my father's illness that this seed was planted. And then I just went forward and forward. I started off reflexologist, then logotherapist, then bereavement counselor, trauma therapist, and now I'm studying IFS, internal family systems. And it is as if he opened this magnificent door to give me a new future, which would be without him. Right? So every difficulty and challenge offers us something. There is this idea called post-traumatic growth, that through traumas, struggles, challenges, and difficulties, we can grow and we can heal through that as well. Right. So Rabbi Wallerstein, who was a wonderful teacher, there's many of his classes on TorahAnytime.com, passed away last year, young man. He had this beautiful idea he shared years ago about potential. And he said, why is it that for a 50th wedding anniversary, like you'll go to a restaurant and you'll celebrate, something small, huge achievement, something, a little small thing. And a wedding where you bring this couple together, and in today's day and age, there's no guarantees for the future. And you have this massive party, huge expenses, and for bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah, also huge party, big celebration. He's like, it doesn't make sense. Rather celebrate when you've achieved things. There's 50 years behind you. You've built a relationship, a family, generations after you. That should be the big expense and the big party. Why have we got it backwards? The time for a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah girl, it's not like this big celebration. It's petrifying. You're accountable for your deeds now. You're a man in society or you're a woman. This responsibility. And that comes with this big party. Because the party is there to celebrate the potential of who this young boy or girl can become, or who this couple can be, what they can do, what greatness they can achieve together. That's what we're celebrating. And that's what's happening in the month of Shvat. The potential for what this tree can be and what I can be, despite my winter, despite my hardship or my difficulties, what I can do with the sap that is rising. And I always say to people, if you woke up today breathing, you have a second chance. Right? You have a second chance. If we hurt someone yesterday, we can fix it today. It doesn't matter if it was 15 years ago. I had one client who came to me. She fell out. She couldn't even remember the exact reason why with her brother. And 15 years later, she didn't speak to her brother for many, 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 many years. Her mother in the interim got sick and was dying, and they had to arrange different visiting times so they wouldn't see each other, and went through Shiva in different homes, right? How far we take things. And then she wanted to reach out and reconnect with him. And I think the fault was on her even. And she wanted to repair. And she got guidance from Rabbi Bela, if any of you knew him, wonderful, wonderful rabbi. And she got guidance from him, and he said, send an email. And he never responded. And he said, send another email to say, perhaps, my internet, I got a new computer, you didn't receive my first email, so I'm sending it again. And that planted the seed of repair. So it doesn't matter what it is, like we always can repair. We can always repair. And always when I teach about these things, and it is actually also written as a chapter in my book on forgiveness, that forgiveness, I always tell people, is not about the perpetrator, that they need you to forgive them, that there are so many myths around what forgiveness is and isn't, but the main idea is I don't want to schlep a ball and chain around in my life anymore, because while I'm doing that, that's where I'm living. What he did to me 20 years ago, right? I wake up with that energy every day. And think about how strong your tree is if that's where you're living, back there. And we need strong trees. There is turbulence sometimes. We need strong trees. So this is a huge topic on forgiveness that we can look at, and it is something that this month also gives us. There is potential, and each day we can repair. Gives us this gift of what is available. So here's another story of this great, great man, Zusha, that you may have heard. He comes up in many, many times. He's the brother of Rav Elimelech from Lezhansk. When I went on my trip to Poland, I went to his grave at 10 a.m. We drank vodka and sang and danced. It's the earliest I've ever started drinking. So he had this thing at the end of his life. He was lying in his deathbed, all his students around him, the most beloved teacher, and he's sobbing his eyes out. And his pupils are saying, Rebbe, what are you crying about? What could you be scared about? Look, you're the most you're the most incredible person. What could you be scared about and crying about? He said, I'm not scared that I didn't become as hospitable as Abraham, or I didn't become the leader that Moshe was. I'm not scared that I didn't do those things. I'm scared that I didn't become Zusha. I was born with the potential. I was given challenges. I was given difficulties. I am scared if I didn't do those things how I was given, with the tools I was given, if I didn't become everything I was supposed to become. And this is the fruit on the tree, right? So we have to first think of our roots. Fascinating fact I learned about roots. I've never been to see, and please God, one day I will, the redwoods. So if you've seen them, just go like this. They look spectacular on photographs, but I cannot even imagine. I just can't imagine. There's one tree on Achuza Street. It's so wide. It's like as wide as this, the trunk. And I'm like, wow, you're awesome. And I can't even imagine the redwoods, right?
You drive through.
Yeah, I believe so. But the internet does not do justice. So I just looked up on the internet this week to see how deep are the roots of a redwood. Does anyone know? Take a guess.
A couple of kilometers?
Kilometers?
They're not that deep.
But they're not
6 feet.
They're not that
They're not deep,
yeah,
but
they
they're
are deep.
wide.
They're very thick.
Yeah. No, it's not only about thick. They grow this way and they connect to their friends. And then they connect to their friends. So all the redwoods are community. And there's this magnificent underground network of roots, right? So this is also now, how connected are we to the people around us? Because yes, there is an idea also, how deep does your root go? How solidly are you connected? Not like the trees in the story in the beginning that fell over. You have to be, that's what actually the word Achuza means. It's such a beautiful name for the street, Achuza, lehitachez, to really be rooted and connected. So I love that idea. So these redwoods, they go out teaching us a lesson in how we connected in community. So exactly 1 year ago and 1 week, I had a terrible accident. I broke my neck. I had a terrible fall. I fell on my head. and I fractured my C2. I'm very lucky. Doctors told me, people can't believe it. You know, you can see. You can see all the movement. I have, Baruch Hashem, recovered beautifully. Very challenging recovery, long time. But I had to rely on community. You know how we are also as women. I'll do this myself. I'll do my washing. No one's going to do the washing for me. I can do my own cooking. I can do my own everything. But I couldn't, right? So there was an opportunity now. And one of my teachers, actually the teacher who had a lot to do with the supervising of my book, my mentor, one day I sent a chapter to her and she wrote back to me, wow, this chapter really, you know, it's got a lot in it. And she just gave me a lot of compliments. And I wrote back, I'm like, really feel embarrassed to read this, you know, your comments on the book. And she said to me, don't deny me the ability to bless you. And this is what we do when we are like, I'll do it myself. I can manage. I can cope. And one of the learning opportunities for me of being incapacitated for 4 months was I can't do it myself. And not that I have to be needy on others, but I let others feel blessed to help me. Isn't that a beautiful, another way to look at it? Like sitting upstairs in the shul? Another beautiful way to look at things. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. So that's another way for us to look at things.
Isn't it also the case of the energy that if you allow yourself, if you open yourself up to receiving from other people, it helps you to heal?
Absolutely.
I was in a similar situation so many years ago.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't accept help from anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what you said, you give.
Yeah.
But once you open yourself up to allowing that energy from other people to come in and help you,
Beautiful.
that's part of your healing as
Absolutely. It's part of
Very
the
much
healing.
so.
Yeah.
I wanted to just make a comment about, we live in Israel and we have two beautiful water systems here. We have the Kinneret and we have the Dead Sea. And you said it, sometimes it's very, very hard. The Dead Sea is there, it's just there. But we have to learn that we need this zrima, we need this flowing action, that the Kinneret has the giving and the taking. And this is our lesson. If we are like the Dead Sea, where everything is closed and there's not ability to receive, then it's just there, not changing. And as we learn that we do have to receive, and we do have to learn how to receive, it's a learning process, and it only helps us grow.
Yeah.
So,
and actually it's to take even that concept of give and take, change the words to receive and return. Like it's a process. We are all like the redwoods, right? Interconnected like that. And you know that in one area, if it's raining and another area it's droughting, they send water, right? So it's a beautiful idea of being able to receive. And something else just on what Zusha was feeling is that this idea that I love also to speak about the difference between being healed and being cured, right? There's a difference. Because not everyone, and I learned this initially from my father being ill and then dying, that sometimes you can't be cured, right? People have autoimmune diseases, people have terminal diseases, you can't be cured, but that doesn't mean you can't be healed. And for me, when I work with people, that's what we work about. Let's not focus on what we can't change, but let's focus on what now. Like, what can you do? How can you reach your potential within this disease? Might not ever change, but what can you maybe help others with it? Could you start a support group? How could you teach others what you've learned from this? What benefit can you give to the world, return to the world with what you have been given? So all of these things are little seeds I want to just be planting with you to connect to what this month is bringing for us through our difficulties and our challenges. And one last story, okay? So there is the story of these two seeds, these little acorns in the ground, just waiting, happy, loving the darkness, just there together, friends, sababa. They know where they are, what they're doing, their routine, everything is fine. And the one's getting a bit agitated, like, I'm ready to start growing. And the other one says, are you crazy? You don't know what it's like out there. There's winds and there's storms and there's birds that can come and eat you. You know, it's dangerous. Like, let's just stay down here. It's, you know, it's dark. No one's going to find us. And, you know, let's just stay this, you know, stay acorns. And he tries it for a little while and he says, you know, I just can't. Like, there's this something in me that wants to grow. And he says, c'est la vie, bye-bye. And he starts growing into this tree, and the winds come and are knocking him over, and the rains, and the sun also comes, and he starts growing and growing, and he's disintegrating. His friend is more and more petrified. He sees him disappearing and morphing into roots and changing, and he doesn't know what's become of his friend. And this now friend is now a tree and grown into the open, and this other one is just still didn't become much, didn't anything happen. And along comes this noise he hears pecking on the ground, and the bird finds him and eats him. And that's the end of the story, right? So if we're going to stay in that place of just being so scared, right, knocked down by life, this has been too much or too hard or too big for me, then we'll never become the tree. We'll just stay that little acorn hidden in the ground, too petrified to become anything. But this month is saying to us, become something. Do something with your life. You've been given opportunities. The struggles are showing you what you're made of. Take that and move forward, because then we can give off fruit. That's the final thing. And you know, fruit is not something that we absolutely have to have in our diet other than vitamin C. But fruit is not something we have to have. It's a gift from God, right? It's an absolute gift. So in looking at what are the gifts that we can bring through the fruit that we bring, not even just through our children that we bring into the world and what they bring into the world, what we nurture through them, but what are we bringing to the world? Each of us has never been here before. No one in all the history of the world has been you or you or you or me. This is the first time this energy is in the world at this time. Even on Yom Kippur we say, until this time, God, I wasn't formed, I wasn't worthy of being formed, and now I have been formed. You know, I haven't done so much good with what I've done. There's a little prayer that we say at the end of the Amidah. Please forgive me, you know, let me become what I'm meant to be. And I think that is also the push for this potential. No one has my set of skills, your set of skills, your abilities. No one has that. Let's not rob the world of bringing our flavor out there, of bringing our fruit to the world. We've each come here at a time with our difficulties and challenges to be able to reach somewhere. Let's try and do that. We woke up breathing today. There's another opportunity. Thank you.